Well, there's never a dull moment when you're tracking Cormani McClain. He's at the Under Armour All-America game, and he did confirm it. He's still a University of Miami commit.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am Alex Donno, your host. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. And thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So yesterday afternoon, we talked about Cormani McClain showing up to Under Armour All-America wearing Canes gear from head to toe. He showed up, of course, today for the media day. And the only thing he said before declining interviews was he was asked to confirm if he is a Miami Hurricanes commit, and he did confirm it. He threw up the U to pose for pictures. And Manny Navarro from The Athletic has reported that Cormani could make things even more official on January 15th. That's a day to look out for. It's kind of a weird situation because those of you who follow recruiting, you understand that, well, he missed the early signing window and he can't officially sign a national letter of intent until February 1st. So what's this January 15th thing about? Apparently he can sign a grant in aid agreement to enroll in the university if he chooses to do that. And he could have the ceremony that he didn't have on National Signing Day on the 21st at Lakeland, the one that he didn't make it to. So, yes, my head is spinning, just like all of your heads have been spinning, because for the last week and a half following this Cormani McClain saga, it's been exhausting. And I don't necessarily know if it's his fault. I mean, yeah, he didn't sign a national letter of intent, but the young man's not really saying anything. So everyone out there who's like, why is this guy such a drama queen? How come Cormani is such a diva? Like, I think maybe part of his problem is he doesn't talk enough, right? When you think about divas, they're the guys who are like going out of their way to, me, being so outspoken. It's the rest of us who are really doing the talking for Cormani. He has said little to nothing about this, but the young man keeps showing up everywhere, wearing Miami gear, throwing up the U. My understanding is when he didn't sign last week, there could be administrative reasons behind that, and he still wants to be a Hurricane. But I do think it's fair to say, and we're going to bring in the man, the myth, the legend here, Larry Blustein. Like Blue, even if Cormani McClain does, right now consider himself a Miami commit, until he signs that national letter of intent, there's going to be a lot of vultures circling, right? There are going to be other schools who are going to keep recruiting him until he officially puts pen to paper.
Yeah, well, I guess he's kind of created this because of the fact that he must have some deal with somebody that he can't talk to any media except for this one group. And that's really holding this whole thing up because it's a shame. I mean, I was told at the state championship games, he was going to talk to a couple of people after the game. And then all of a sudden I saw these disgruntled reporters and media types come over, and I said, what's wrong? And they go, well, his mom says that he can't talk to anybody because he has a deal with somebody else.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So it's going to remain a mystery because whoever it is that has somebody's doing a documentary, and it was an exclusive documentary. And isn't that crazy? And
that is crazy. Wow.
Yeah. You're never going to know anything. Like Manny Navarro and I, he and I have a kind of a running joke with this because at the state game, he was telling me all this, and then all of a sudden I saw him over there, I believe with David Wilson from the Miami Herald, and they were talking to him, and I took a picture. And all of a sudden, the next thing I know is that picture was up on the Athletic website a couple of days ago. And I said, wow, that's a pretty neat picture. And he says, and Manny said to me, it's more exclusive than you think. He goes, this will be the only time you'll ever see anybody him ever talking to the media. And he actually wasn't talking on the record. he was just having a conversation with them.
Yeah.
And I snapped a photo of it, and Manny and I got a little chuckle out of that. It's a strange situation, but I think you never know what the people, especially in this NIL world, kind of come up with, and maybe part of his NIL deal with this media company who's doing a documentary with him is to be exclusive with them, and I'm sure that he's going to be compensated for it, because there's no other reason why. I mean, why would you not talk to you didn't even talk to the Lakeland Ledger, and
Wow.
yeah,
Didn't talk to the local paper, huh?
yeah, wouldn't even talk to the local paper. And so everybody I talked to, I said, well, what did he say? So, well, as long as you didn't have pen to hand and in hand and microphone up, he was like talking his butt off. But once they started interviewing, I think it was Mom who intervened and told these guys that he has an exclusive right with somebody else. And so this thing will be a mystery till February. So
I learned something new every day about Cormani McClain. This is and you know what? That helps me connect a lot of the dots as to why he does precious few interviews.
Right, he doesn't do any. I mean, you won't now. You won't see him do any because of the fact that that's why you said that he's not talking to anybody at the Under Armour game. That's the reason. I mean, and he probably by now, I think the reporters are even shying away from him. I'm sure the Under Armour people don't like that too much, because that's part of their, everything that makes them pretty special is they expose these kids right after practices, and I'm sure he sits there and has a conversation, but as soon as somebody asks him a pertinent question,
Wow.
He becomes Helen Keller pretty quick.
I did not know that. Wow. And okay, so that makes a lot of sense. And obviously I don't love that.
But you know what?
Yeah.
Like I said, Alex, in this world of NIL deals and everybody getting their slice of the pie, I guess when somebody approaches you and say, we're going to give you X amount of dollars, to be have exclusivity to I think they're doing some type of documentary, because they're following them around throughout the entire game and after the game in Lakeland. I'm sure and from what I've heard, they've been around all the practices, and and I mean, and I'm sure Coach Castle doesn't like that at Lakeland, but you know what? He's not his problem anymore, and now the kid's pretty much out there. And like you said, he can say all he wants, but he can't officially sign with Miami till the 1st of February, I believe it is. And so there you go. That's it in a nutshell. So Miami fans, it's only going to be speculation now what he says, because people are going to, and like you said, people are going to make up things, but the real fan that knows the situation is going to go, nah, he couldn't have said it because he's not saying anything. So.
Well, so that's pretty illuminating stuff off the field. Now, on the field, I lean on your expertise a lot, because nobody watches more high school football than you, especially in the state of Florida. If Miami does end up bringing in Cormani McClain, give me your best insight on what type of a corner he is.
Yeah, a really good football player. I mean, there's no doubt about it. He has been ever since the 10th grade at Lake Gibson, and a tremendous athlete. But probably his problem was being so good is they never really threw his way this year. Yeah. And that was one of the things. And even in the state game, I don't think that Venice threw, Venice. I don't think Venice threw in his way one time. In fact, we saw him do was, trying to, block or fend off blocks or so. So that's one of the things when you become such a, one of those no fly zone type of kids. And there's been, Patrick Peterson was one of those in high school as well. So yeah, it happens. But very skilled kid. You could tell he's a rangy kid at 6'2.5", kind of thinnish, but deceptively strong, very athletic. And, he, and, like I say, when people ask me, you look at Damari Brown, And Damari Brown has probably accomplished a whole lot more because of the fact that he's had opportunities. And, you know, when he played and, you know, this past year, especially, you know, he would go against Edwin Joseph, and he would go up against, you know, some of the top kids from Cardinal Gibbons. And he had a chance to go against the two kids from Jacksonville Bulls. And then obviously in the state championship game, you know, he had Seymour that he went against, or one of the top receivers that Miami Central had. So he's had more of the opportunities, and that's why a lot of people are saying, well, you know, there's a lot of fans that are, you know, a little upset with Cormani for not signing on National Signing Day. And then now they're reverting to, you know, Brown is this and Brown is that, which he is. But you like to have them both. And,
yes.
And hopefully if he says what everybody says he said, which I heard you talk about John Garcia, and John's a good guy, a real good dude, and he knows his stuff. And so, you know, but I heard that yesterday. Somebody told me who's up there that he arrived and he had University of Miami attire on. But, you know, I've seen it before. You know, I mean, I've seen where these kids show up and have University of Miami stuff on, you know, from the beginning, and they never went there. But we'll see. It's certainly a great conversation, but let it be known that, you know, it's not his doing that he's not talking. It's just that I guess he has an agreement with somebody else. And, you know, we found that out. I had asked a bunch of people why, and they told me that, you know, his mother, who I think is controlling this entire deal here.
Seems that way. Yeah.
Yeah. She's the one that told all these media people that, you know, right now he's got and she was cordial about it from what I understand. But yeah, it makes no sense. I mean, if you strike up a deal and you want to follow them around, that's one thing. But these people who are doing documentaries aren't into immediate news.
Yeah, I wish they shared some of this news. If they're the only ones getting anything official on the record, I wish that they could share some of this stuff.
Yeah, but I think that if they did, I think maybe this could be all them, you know, orchestrating all this when you think about it, because, you know, I mean, it would have been their little documentary would have been over last week. So now they get an opportunity.
They get more. They get to get the footage of the uneaten cake at Lakeland High.
Exactly. And now they're up at Under Armour, and you know, I'm sure they are following them around just to probably prolong this documentary and even make it more. You know what? I'm just speculating, but sure. It all sounds like that, doesn't it?
It sure does. Well, I want to get Larry Blustein's take. And by the way, you guys know our boy Blue. He is an absolute legend. AM 560 Sports WQIM in South Florida, the sixth ring. He's been covering high school football at a high level and recruiting and college football. I want to get Blue's take and scouting report on TJ Capers. Elite five-star edge rusher for the class of 2024. He's from Mario Cristobal's alma mater at Columbus High, and he's got Miami among his finalists. So we're going to talk about Capers right after we talk about betonline.net. My goodness, guys. This is my go-to spot every single day. BetOnline is your number one source for sports betting info, stats, news, and analysis. Get the latest odds and trends for every professional and amateur league out there, from pro football to college bowl season, which I'm loving right now, basketball, soccer, combat sports. We've got it all at BetOnline. And if you love sports podcasts, you can find those at BetOnline as well. We're always the fastest and easiest way to get your betting info. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more. BetOnline, where the game starts. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Alex Donno alongside Larry Blustein. So, Blue, I'd be disappointed if he didn't have Miami in his finalists, considering where he goes to high school. South Florida area player, five-star edge rusher from Columbus, TJ Capers. And it's interesting because Miami is the only Florida school in his top five. So he's got a very national recruitment. Colorado is in his top five. Coach Prime seems to be getting on everybody's short list. Miami, Louisville, Georgia, and Alabama. So what can you tell me about this elite prospect, 6'2", 230, going to be heading into his senior season next year from Columbus?
Going to be a 4-year starter for one. I mean, he started out as a linebacker. Um, Potentially he's as good as you get. I mean, there's no doubt about it. I mean, he's quick, he's long, he's everything you want in a football player. Unfortunately, didn't get a chance to finish out the year and play in the state championship game. He had surgery on his knee, which I know really hurt him because he worked so hard to get it. I think what you're going to see in 2023 out of TJ is someone who can put up just amazing numbers, because you got to remember now that Columbus returns Dalen Russell, interior defensive tackle, who had a monster year, just a monster year. I think he had 11 tackles in the state championship game, bunch of quarterback pressures. Now enter Willis McGahee Jr., who comes over from Miami Palmetto at the other edge rusher. And who are you going to pay more attention to? So now you got Capers, you got Dalen Russell, you got McGahee, a great linebacking core that's coming back. And he is really going to be spotlighted a lot because it's going to take him a while to, in the offseason. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of him, only because of the fact that he's going to have to get over this injury. So everything that you saw this year is something that a lot of people were just amazed by. Great kid. Really good student in the classroom, great family support. And then, like I said, you're at a place like Christopher Columbus and you're learning a lot every day. And Dave Dunn, I think, one of the premier high school football coaches in South Florida. I mean, here's a guy that spent 18 years at the collegiate level and then came back to Columbus. And then, and is teaching these kids a lot, not only about the game, but about life. And TJ's he's one of those dudes, that you look at him and physically he's intimidating. And like I said, 2023 could really be an amazing year for him because there's no way you're going to be able to double team him. There's just no way because, there's other players on that defensive front. And they may have the premier defensive front of anybody. And I know you've never had a chance to see Willis McGahee's Jr., but he's another freak of nature. And then you put him on the other end and then Dalen in the middle, and TJ's looking pretty damn good.
Where's McGahee's kid considering going? Do you know?
Don't know, but he's really blown up over the last year. He's got, if his dad had his size, he'd probably still be playing. He's kid 6'2.5", almost 6'3", 235 pounds. Wow. Good, I'm sure that Miami's definitely going to be in the mix. And you think about if you bring in those two, along with an emerging Hurricane Bain, who's going to obviously maybe be in an interior play over the next 2-3 years, you'd probably gain, up to 35 pounds and put him in the middle, because you definitely don't want to put him in the, in the interior at 250 pounds, especially if he's going against 340-pound offensive linemen. So you figure those three right there could be the future, along with the kid Wayne that's coming in. That's going to be a defensive front. And if you remember, the thing is the edge rush position isn't Miami's problem. It's just stocking up in the middle and getting interior guys. You have Leonard Taylor. You're going to have a couple of other kids in this class. So, yeah, definitely if he picks Miami, and there's a good chance he will for a number of reasons, but one of the reasons is he could be part of one of the premier defensive fronts in the country over the next couple of years, and that's something that probably would be appealing to him.
Well, coming up next, I've got a scoop on a big-time player who may, in fact, visit Miami before this recruiting process is over. I want to get Blue's take on this player, and by popular demand, because that one of our listeners keeps asking me on Twitter. I don't think he cares about my take. He wants Larry Bluestein's scouting report on Emory Williams, the new Miami Hurricanes quarterback signee who's coming in the class of 2023. So got a lot coming up here, folks, on Locked On Canes. Want to remind you guys of the importance of driving sober. you're heading out with some friends, putting back a few drinks. And I know that this coming weekend is a time a lot of you will be doing that. A few becomes too many. And as the evening comes to an end and people start to head out, you think of calling for a ride, but nah, you live nearby. You can make it home okay, right? It's no big deal. Well, what are the odds you'll get pulled over anyway? And even so, what's the worst that could happen? Your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you lose your job, you total your car, you kill someone. Everyone knows about the risks of driving drunk, but the results are tragic and often deadly. However, that still doesn't stop everyone from getting behind the wheel under the influence. That's why police officers are out there right now looking for impaired drivers on our roads to save lives. So if you think you're okay to drive after a few drinks, think again. Play it safe and plan ahead to get a ride. It only takes one mistake to change your life or someone else's life forever. Drive sober or get pulled over. Thank you so much for making Locked On Canes your first listen today. Available free wherever you get your podcasts and available free on YouTube. So one of my colleagues who's out at Under Armour All-America today, obviously Cormani McClain is out there not talking, but Nyckoles Harbor did say he might, in fact, visit Miami. Now, remember, Harbor I think he's the top remaining unsigned player because most of the 5 stars and 4 stars have signed somewhere by now, but Harbor is not only unsigned, but uncommitted because he's got such a rigorous track schedule. He's a track star. He's taken his process all the way to February, and Miami is among his finalists. They're not believed to be the favorite, but Maryland, which is the hometown team for him, could be the favorite. Michigan, South Carolina, LSU, and Miami, and he's got one more official visit to take, and he's been deciding between Miami or LSU on where to take that visit. And Harbor did say he may end up making that visit to Miami to kind of scratch that itch. And as we always say, even if Miami's not the favorite, you get someone in for a visit. Cristobal's usually pretty good at closing the deal. So, Blue, you talked about Miami being pretty stacked at the edge. That's one of the positions Harbor could play, but he could also play tight end, and I kind of wonder, even though he's gigantic, maybe jumbo wide receiver. It seems like you can get creative with this guy because he's so fast.
Well, that's a good point. I mean, obviously, he's listed as an edge rusher. He's 6'5", 225 pounds, runs a 10.37
Jeez.
in the 100. I mean, that alone, if you get a 5'9", 160-pounder, that's pretty damn good. And that's
good luck covering him.
But 6'5", 225 pounds, he's got a chance. And you know what? The wide receiver position would be perfect for him because it's not real tight. He's a loose type of guy because of his running. He's very athletic. As you mentioned, he could probably play 2-3 different positions. An amazing looking kid. Obviously you had mentioned Maryland as being one of the favorites. Certainly they've been able to get some pretty good talent. Michigan being in the Big Ten and in a program where you get a lot of play. Oregon being another program that, their Coach Lanning is doing a tremendous job of recruiting and playing on his days at Georgia and some of the things that he's done. Alabama's, I heard, in the mix. Those close to him think that South Carolina probably has the edge right now, only because of the fact that they pursued him from the beginning. They're talking track, they're talking everything with him, and perhaps they may have talked about playing the wide receiver position like you did. And I'm sure that if he signed with Miami, Mario Cristobal would let him pretty much serve dinner if he wanted to. So, just to get him on campus. And
I think Mario would let him run track because Chris Johnson's going to run track. So they'd let him run track for sure.
No doubt. I mean,
and maybe get him in on a track scholarship like Butch Davis used to do, so you still have 85 football scholarships available.
Yeah, like Moss was on a track scholarship because he could run so well. And think about this guy too. I mean, look back at Ed Reed. I mean, Ed Reed was a Big East decathlon champion and amazing. So when you get tremendous athletes and certainly this is a superior guy like Chris Johnson. Some people asked me the other day who was the fastest high school football player that I've ever seen in South Florida. And yeah, Tony Gator was extremely fast, one of the fastest. But when you're talking about elite USA Olympic type of speed, you're looking at a guy like Chris Johnson, who was already a junior national sprinting champion, and also a young man like him. So, yeah, I think Miami's going to give it their best. Hopefully it's going to be enough. But I think that what he's going to do, he's from Archbishop Carroll, in Washington, D.C. area. So he's familiar with a lot of the players that are, coming to Miami, and certainly there's some of the kids that went to IMG Academy from that area as well. And we'll see. He would be a great addition, but he would be sort of like a surprise, because he really wasn't on the initial list, and, he wasn't one of those guys that we got to get him. So if they do come away with him, that just adds to what has been just an amazing recruiting class.
So, all right, I got to get your scouting report on incoming 2023 quarterback, because as we've talked about before, he plays in a part of Florida and at a high school at Milton that, he does have a wide receiver teammate who's been recruited by Georgia. I think he's headed to Georgia. But Emory Williams, newest Miami quarterback, doesn't get as much buzz, and he was an Elite 11 finalist over the summer and performed very well. What can you tell our listeners and viewers about Emory Williams?
Well, I tell everybody this story. 2 years ago, I was at one of the mega camps that FSU held, and, there was 800 kids, maybe even more. There are 40 different colleges. And I was talking with Coach Odell Hagens, who I've known forever. And we look over, and I says, "Who's this guy?" I said, "This kid's, I know he's in T-shirt and shorts, but he's making some throws out here." And Odell looks at me and shrugs his shoulders and goes, "I'm really not sure." And so I walked over to him. I says, "Where are you from?" And he says, "Well, I'm from Milton." I said, "Oh, okay." And he told me, I said, "What's your name?" He says, "Emory Williams." And I said, "Wow." So I kind of jotted down his name. And when I got back, I put him on the prospect watch. I did a little thing on him that I saw him, throw, although it wasn't in a game. And then I flipped in his video and I watched him play. And I said, damn, this kid for a 10th grader at the time is making all the throws. And I'm real close to Ty Wise, who's a coach in the Panhandle, former University of Miami center, one of the best they've had. And I called up Ty to ask him, and he goes, yeah, we played him. He's got some growing up to do. And, we kind of left it at that. And then all of a sudden, when Frank Ponce got the job, he called me up and he goes, "There's this kid in the Panhandle that some people are starting to talk about." So I said, yeah. I said, "Well, actually, I think I initially put him out there." I says, "Is that Emory Williams?" He goes, "Yeah." And Frank went to see him. And when he came back, he goes, "I'm telling you, man, this kid's special." Talked to Ty Wise again this year after they played him again. He goes, "I'll tell you, Blue, he's really, really transformed into something special. He makes all the throws. He's a big kid. He's got some mobility to him. But the one thing is he's deadly accurate. And he seems a very bright kid, over 3+ in the classroom." And there you have it. I mean, there's a kid right there that went from just, just when they had Rashada on the line, Emory was just a throw-in, by the way, we also have Emory. Now, when they're talking about quarterbacks and you talk to Frank or you talk to anybody like that, especially now that the kid's signed, they can't talk enough positives about him, and getting him in here and having a chance for him to be in a competition, but at the same time, learn a lot from TVD, learn a lot just being in that room and it's become a really, really good room, because as of right now, I don't see Jake Garcia. I don't see anybody leaving. And, right. People, from what I heard, Jake's been, offered these other jobs, at different schools, but I think he just likes Miami. And, and listen, I've heard it before, where people, but win, lose, or draw, he's coming in. He'll be in this program, and I'm telling you, he's going to elevate this room's size. He's everything that Miami wants because he's, the over the 6'3" type of quarterback. I believe 6'4" almost.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah.
Makes all the throws, and he's mobile, an intelligent kid, and that's all and he's a competitor, and he's not, and that's why he could have easily, when everybody started getting on him, when they found out about him, he could say, you know what, Miami's nice, but they've got this guy and that guy, but he wants the smoke, and he's going to get it.
I love it. Well, fantastic stuff as always. Make sure you follow Blue on Twitter at Larry Blustein. Check out his shows on 560 WQAM and on the Sixth Ring Kane. And Blue, I can't thank you enough. And if I don't talk to you before, Happy New Year coming up. And I hope you're having a great holiday season.
You too. Thanks so much, Alex.
It's our pleasure always. And guys, make sure after you make us your first listen, you make Locked On Sports Today your second listen. Peter Bukowski brings you the biggest stories from around the sports world in 20 minutes. Get the analysis and opinions before anyone else with our local and national experts and insiders. Locked On Sports Today podcast, available on YouTube and wherever you get your pods. We'll talk to you again tomorrow on another episode of Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.